Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you're joining me, and today is Tractate Masechet Teruma, Daf 33, Omid B. The Gemara rejects this suggestion. One cannot arrive at this conclusion from the Brisa, since the Brisa states that the animals died. It is not referring to death due to natural causes, rather what are we dealing with? With a case where one transgressed the prohibition against slaughtering blemished animals and slaughtered them before they were redeemed, an act that nevertheless renders them permitted for human consumption after redemption is taught in a Brisa. With regard to all sacrificial animals that the blemish of blemish and one slaughtered them, Kol Hagadashim Shenafa Behem Mum Ushchatan, in a case where one consecrated a blemished animal and subsequently developed a permanent blemish, if it was slaughtered before it was redeemed, it may be redeemed while it is still convulsing. It may then be consumed, and that's from the Rambam Sefer Avodah Hilchot Isurim Mizbeach 111. Rabbi Meir says that they should be buried, as he holds in according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that animals consecrated for the altar were included in halacha of standing valuation and must be buried if they died. And the rabbis say since an animal consecrated for the altar is not included in halacha of standing and valuation, even if one slaughtered it, it can be redeemed. Rabbi Yirmiyah further said to Rabbi Zera, according to Rabbi Shimon, who said that the animals consecrated for temple maintenance were not included in the halacha of standing and valuation and are redeemed if they died. Why does he state in the last part cited earlier that unblemished animals consecrated for temple maintenance shall be buried and not redeemed? Rabbi Zera responds, it's because they are fit for sacrifice upon the altar. The Gemara explains the significance of the fact that these animals which are consecrated to temple maintenance are fit for the altar, as it is told in the Brisa, one who associates unblemished animals, i.e. consecrates them by means of associating their sanctity with sanctified items for temple maintenance, Hamash Piz Tamimim Levedek Habayis. A kosher, unblemished animal that was consecrated to temple maintenance may be redeemed only in order to bring it as an offering for which it is fit. As any consecrated item that is fit for the altar may never leave the altar. That's from the Rambam Sefer Avodah 5:5. When they are redeemed by the treasurer, they are redeemed only for the altar. They are sold to those who must bring an offering, and the animals are sacrificed upon the altar. They may be redeemed only for the altar, not for any non-sacred use. As any consecrated item that is fit to be sacrificed on the altar, it may never leave the custody of the altar. The Gemara continues to analyze the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Rav Papa said to Abaye, and some say Rabbah said to Abaye, according to Rabbi Yochanan, interprets the above Brisa as referring to an animal blemish from the outset, and who further claims that everyone, i.e. Rabbi Shimon and the rabbis, hold that an animal blemish from the outset was not included in the halacha of standing valuation. One may ask, and do they both agree that an animal blemish from the outset was not included in that halacha? But doing in the Mishnah Brachot 14a, all sacrificial animals, called hakadashim, although the phrase all sacrificial animals indicates that these halacha apply to all offerings, in its latter clause, the Mishnah teaches that this is not the case with regard to firstborn animals and animal tithes. In other words, a firstborn animal born with a blemish is considered like an animal whose sanctification preceded its blemish, and the same halacha applies to a blemished animal that was separated as a tithe by its owner. Since these animals are not fit for sacrifice upon the altar, and they may not be redeemed either, as their monetary value does not belong to the temple treasury, they are consumed by the respective owners, the priest who receives the firstborn, and the owner of the animal tithe, the halacha. And a blemished animal tithe has inherent sanctity. The fact that it is blemished and is unfit for the altar is derived from a verse. As for why a blemished firstborn animal has inherent sanctity, some commentators maintain that it is because a firstborn sanctity applies automatically, i.e. it is not sanctified by the owner. That's from the Rambeinu Gershom Hagola. Others explain that it is because the sanctity of the firstborn takes effect before it became blemished, as its qualification due to a blemish is only after it is born, and that's the Reish Bikurim, in which a permanent blemish, mum kavoa, although one who consecrates an animal with a temporary blemish for the altar transgresses the prohibition against consecrating blemish animal, nevertheless the animal is inherently sanctified, as its blemish is transient, and it will eventually be fit as an offering. The Brachos 41a, according to all the halachot that apply to an unblemished animal consecrated for the altar, applied to this animal as well, preceded their consecration. If one consecrates a blemished animal for the altar, whether to use its value to purchase a valid offering, or without specification, the value of the animal belongs to the altar and is used to purchase a valid offering, just as wood or stones that were consecrated for the altar are used to purchase the purchase of offerings. The animal itself does not have inherent sanctity. Nevertheless, It is prohibited to consecrate a blemished animal for the altar, according to the verse, but whatsoever has a blemish, you shall not bring. Leviticus 22:20. The sages interpret the term "you shall not bring" as a prohibition against its consecration as well. This prohibition applies even if one consecrates the animal for the altar only for its value and not as an offering. The reason is that consecrating a blemished animal instead of an unblemished one degrades the altar and are not sanctified as offerings, rather they are sold and the money is received to purchase valid offerings, and once they are redeemed, with regard to all sacrificial animals in which a permanent blemish preceded their consecration and they were redeemed, one is obligated in the midst of the firstborn and the giving of the gifts of the priesthood. 5:8 and Duraim become 9:2, and they are obligated in subject to accounting their offspring, a firstborn, and in the priestly gifts. What's the priestly gifts? Matanos kahuna. One is required to give a priest of the foreleg, jaw, and maw of any non-consecrated animal that is slaughtered for consumption. Deuteronomy 18:3. No sanctity applies to these gifts, and therefore, once they are given to the priest, he may give or sell them to a non-priest. And a picture of a cow here showing the foreleg, the jaw, and the maw. Of the foreleg, the jaw, and the maw, and they emerge from the sacred stages and assume a complete non-sacred state in order to be shorn and to be utilized for labor. So what does that mean? The gazes le aver. If one consecrated for the altar an animal without a permanent blemish, if one consecrated an animal with a permanent blemish, it is by rabbinic law to shear or utilize it for labor. Once it has been redeemed, it is non-sacred in every sense and may be shown and utilized for labor. 1:9. By Torah law, it is prohibited to shear or utilize sacrificial animals for labor. In accordance with the verse, you shall do no work with the firstling of your ox, nor shear the firstling of your flock. Deuteronomy 15:19. The sages derive that this verse is referring to all sacrificial animals, not only firstborn animals, said the Sifri, but with regard to animals whose monetary value is consecrated, the prohibition to shear them or work them applies by rabbinic decree. The early commentaries question why there is no Torah prohibition against shearing or working such an animal, and the prohibition against misuse of confiscated property still in effect. The Rosh and Brachos 1:11 maintains that one can in fact become liable for misuse in such a case. It should be added that the prohibition against misuse applies only when one actually derives benefit from confiscated property, whereas the mission is referring to a case where one paid the temple treasury for the value of the shearings or its labor, or where the value of the benefit one derived was worth less than the one putter, to which no Torah prohibition applies. By contrast, the prohibition against shearing or working a sacrificial animal applies even if one derives no benefit at all, as the sacrificial animal has inherent sanctity, and their offspring and their milk are permitted after their redemption. And one who slaughters them outside the temple courtyard, if one consecrated for the altar an animal with a permanent blemish and slaughtered it outside the temple courtyard, he is exempt from karet, as the verse states, and has not brought it unto the door of the tent of meeting, Leviticus 17:4. The sage derived from this verse that any animal that is unfit to be sacrificed inside the temple courtyard is not render one liable for slaughtering it outside the courtyard. 19:7 is exempt. Although one who slaughters any unblemished animal outside the temple courtyard is exempt, even if its consecration preceded its blemish, since one is liable only for slaughtering an animal that is fit for sacrifice. See the Racham 112b. There are certain instances in which one is liable for slaughtering an animal whose consecration preceded its blemish. One example of this is the case of minor blemishes of the eye, as halacha is that if such an animal ascends upon the altar, it shall not descend. Indeed, the Mishnah Brachot states, all sacrificial animals whose consecration preceded their blemish, one who slaughters them outside the temple courtyard is liable to receive karet. The early commentaries analyze this problematic ruling, especially in the expansive phrase, all sacrificial animals whose consecration preceded their blemish, which apparently includes all such animals in this halacha. It should be noted that there is an alternative version of the text which states that one who slaughters such an animal outside the temple courtyard is exempt. See the Rambam. Even the animal not yet redeemed, and those animals do not render an animal exchange for them a substitute. If one consecrates an animal with a permanent blemish, it does not render an animal exchange for it a substitute. The reason is it is not inherently sacred. While its value alone is consecrated. The Rambam Sefer Kabbalah Teruma 113, and Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, with regard to this Mishnah, the statement that one who consecrates a blemished animal for the altar may redeem it if it dies, this is according to the statement of Rabbi Shimon, who says that animals consecrated for the altar were included in halacha standing and valuation, but animals consecrated for temple maintenance were not included. As we learned in the Mishnah, that Rabbi Shimon says, if animals consecrated for temple maintenance died, they can be redeemed, since they were not included in halacha standing and valuation, but animals consecrated for the altar that died or buried, as they were included in this halacha. And Rabbi Shimon concedes with regard to an animal that was blemished from the outset, which was consecrated for the altar and died, that it is redeemed. What is the reason? As the verse states, then he shall set the animal before the priest, and the priest shall value it. Leviticus 27:11-12. The emphasis of it serves to exclude an animal that was blemished from the outset from the halacha standing and valuation. But the rabbis say every animal consecrated for the altar, even one that was blemished from the outset, was included in the halacha standing and valuation and must be buried if it dies. This apparently contradicts the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who says that according to the rabbis, an animal that was blemished from the outset was not included in the halacha of standing and valuation. Rabbi said to Rav Papa or Rava, the statement of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav does not pose difficulty for Rabbi Yochanan, as Rav was not referring to the rabbis of the Mishnah who disagree with Rabbi Shimon. Rather, who is the Tana referred to here as the rabbis? It is the Tana of the school of Levi. The other rabbi questioned Rabbi's answer. It was said that even the rabbis of the Mishnah hold that an animal that was blemished from the outset is redeemed. Why did Rav Yehuda say that Rav said that this Mishnah in Tractate Borchat is in accordance with the statement of Rabbi Shimon? Nothing more. This statement indicates that the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon alone. He should have said that this Mishnah is in accordance with the statement of Rabbi Shimon, and those who disagree with him are the rabbis. Rabbi said to him, the reason that Rav Yehuda does not teach in this manner, i.e. that he does not say that the Mishnah is according to the opinion of the rabbis, is because Rav holds the opinion of Reish Lakish, who said that according to the rabbis of the Mishnah, only animals consecrated for temple maintenance were included in the halacha of standing and valuation. Animals consecrated for the altar were not included and are therefore redeemed. And admitting the first clause of the Mishnah can be explained in according to the opinion of the rabbis, as it teaches that if they died, they can be redeemed. This ruling is according to the rabbis, as an animal that was blemished from the outset is considered as one consecrated for the altar. When since it was consecrated in order to be sold to purchase a valid offering, since as it was consecrated in order to be sold to purchase a valid offering. But the latter clause of the Mishnah discusses a case where the consecration of the animal preceded the development of a blemish is not according to the opinion of the rabbis, as it teaches that if they die, they should be buried. According to Reish Lakish and Rav, the rabbis hold that in such a case the animal is redeemed. Consequently, the Mishnah cannot be in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. And if you wish, say instead that Rav holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, and the rabbis maintain that all consecrations that were included in the halacha of standing valuation and are buried if they die. And if the Mishnah is in fact in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. And as for that which posed a difficulty for you, that Rabbi Yehuda should have said that this Mishnah is according to the statement of Rabbi Shimon, and those who disagree with him say, indeed, he said so, that the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and those who disagree with him. Mishnah. And these are the items that are buried, from which deriving benefit is forbidden. In the case of a sacrificial animal that miscarried, the fetus shall be buried. If the animal miscarried a placenta, Kedoshim Shehipila Shilya, a fetus or placenta that was miscarried by a sacrificial animal must be buried, and it is prohibited to derive benefit from it. Rambam Sefer Vod Hilchot Pesulim Kedoshim 19:11, Sefer Kabbalah Hilchot Teruma 4:10. The placenta shall be buried, and the same halacha applies to an ox that is stoned. Shor Haniskal, an ox that is stoned, and a heifer whose neck is broken when a corpse is found between two cities and the killer is unknown, and the bird brought by a leper for his purification, the hair of Nazarite who became richly impure, and the firstborn of a donkey, and a firstborn and a forbidden mix of meat cooked in milk, and non-sacred animals that were slaughtered in temple quail. All these must be buried in Rambam Sefer Vod Hilchot Pesulim Kedoshim 19:11. For killing a person, and a heifer whose neck is broken when a corpse is found between two cities and the killer is unknown, and the bird brought by a leper for purification, and the hair of a Nazarite who is impure, who shaved his head before being given a new term of Nazariteship. And the same halacha applies to the firstborn of a donkey, that if it is not redeemed with a sheep, has its neck broken, and forbidden mixture of meat cooked in milk, and non-sacred animals that were slaughtered in the temple courtyard. Rabbi Shimon says non-sacred animals that were slaughtered in the temple courtyard shall be burned, and sacrificial animals that were disqualified in the courtyard. And likewise, an undomesticated animal that was slaughtered in the temple courtyard, although it is not similar to the animals sacrificed in the temple, shall be burned by rabbinic decree. And these are the items that are burned. Leavened bread on Passover shall be burned. Chomet b'Pesach, how does one destroy leavened bread? When burns or crumbles it and casts it into the wind or sea. This halach in accordance with the opinion of rabbis in the Mishnah of Pesachim 21a. And the Sefer Zemanim Hilchet Chomet Matzah 311 and Siyosah Hagagat Mamaniot Kesef Mishnah Nachem Mishnah there Shulchan Aruch 445.1 shall be burned. And the same halach applies to richly impure teruma. With regard to the fruit that grows on a tree during the first 3 years after it was planted, orla, and diverse kind of fruit crops sown in a vineyard, those items whose appropriate manner of destruction is to be burned, e.g. fruit shall be burned, and those items whose appropriate manner of destruction is to be buried, e.g. liquid shall be buried, and one may ignite fire with bread, and with oil and impure teruma. One may ignite a fire with oil richly impure teruma. Sages call this oil for burning. Even though the priest derives benefit from that fire. With regard to all sacrificial animals that were slaughtered with the intent to sacrifice or consume them beyond their designated time or outside the designated place, those animals shall be buried. All sacrificial animals that were disqualified, including animals that were slaughtered with the intent to consume them outside the designated time or place, must be burned out from the Roman Sefer of Avoda, 19:1. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you a very good day and peace in Israel. All the best. Bye.